My journey starts, as promised, in 2018 with the film A Portuguesa, or in English, The Portuguese Woman, a film directed by Portuguese film director Rita Azevedo Gomes. This is a period film which starts with a northern Italian nobleman von Ketten returning from an extended honeymoon after marrying an exotic foreign woman from Portugal. She is with child and bears him a male heir. And so upon returning to the homestead, von Ketten asks if his bride wishes to stay. He is returning to his passion, his one true love, war. She's not necessary in his life now that the heir is secured. However, the Portuguese wife, indeed she's never named for the entire film, has left her home and her family to create a new adventure for herself. And so, she's left with the staff of the homestead and her son. And there she resides, living with what has become and will become of her life. Here, we are left to exist with her for a long stretch of the film's runtime, as we wait with her for any word and indeed the return of her husband von Ketten. The only break from the day-to-day life is an occasional visitor, or at least initially, the odd appearance of a character played by Ingrid Cavan, who appears as a singing minstrel, dressed mainly in black. I'll say no more about the plot of the film, as I don't want to lay all the themes of the film bare in this introduction. It is neither a review or a recommendation. The question that each film in this journey was left to answer was as to whether I wished to explore more of the director Azevedo Gomes, her filmography, and what I could glean or learn from her style. And the answer to that is a resounding yes. You may be surprised then, as what I've laid out so far does little to scream intrigue. It does seem to be standard period fare, and while period dramas often have a slow developing plot as a trait, The Portuguese Woman stretches this to the limit. I've seen many reviewers frustrated and unable to finish the film due to the pacing, and it is entirely their loss. I am no film expert, but I offer to you, humbly, the points of interest that grabbed me and drew me into this world and her filmography even deeper. There is no doubt that her films have a languid style. That's being generous. It allows the viewer to see the characters and environment in their most natural form. They can breathe. We get to feel what their normal is, how they behave naturally. It means that when anything unusual happens, even if it is the smallest mannerism, it's instantly recognisable as important or different. In each of her films, we live with the characters for a while to be accustomed to their whims and foibles. The Ingrid Cavan minstrel character enters frame almost as a connective between scenes. She signals the transition as clearly as a fade, but her presence is an interesting one. I see her as a banshee type character, and for those not familiar with Irish folklore, a banshee is a wailing female spirit who often wails as a portent of forthcoming death. Now, given the solitude of the central character throughout the vast majority of this film, I can only surmise that Cavan represents her soul as she wonders about von Ketten, and possibly her own state of mind as she ponders what life is to her. Another facet I'd like to point out in this film is the framing, not only in position, but of colour. It happens again and again and again throughout the length of the film. And this framing and colouring is reminiscent of the Virgin Mary poses from Renaissance paintings. We often have the Portuguese woman in the centre of the frame in a staged pose. On either side of her are usually two types of character, One is dark and serious, and the other is more colourful and maybe has a playful and gypsy side. And depending on the situation of the film, the Portuguese woman sways closer to one side than the other one. Just look at how often this occurs and is represented here. It's ubiquitous across the entire film. Even in scenes where she is not depicted, this representation of colour against darkness in that setting is everywhere. Once I noticed it, I couldn't help but see it everywhere, and it gave me deeper understanding of the central character's state of mind in each scene, and to me, is truly incredible filmmaking. So where do you go from there? How deep is the filmography, and are there similar themes throughout them? I watched another 2 films from Gomes, the earliest of which is Fragile as the World, a film from 2001, which is a simple story of young love. It lets the emotions of the characters shine through over everything else. You feel the giddiness, the naivete that comes with the awakening of comfort you feel in the arms of somebody new, someone strange. It's another film where we spend a large portion of the runtime just living with the characters. We don't even see the lovers together much. They converse by burying notes to each other by a post in a field. We see how the written word reflects on their demeanour. And while the film's not as carefully crafted as the later work, The Portuguese Woman, it has a distinctive style all the same. The colours are completely washed out, and they're nearly monochrome, aside from one scene towards the end of the film, and this only accentuates how deliberate the choice of colour and tone were initially. And the film has an even more languid pacing than The Portuguese One, but this film sticks the landing very well. The last film I watched is called A Woman's Revenge, and it's from 2012, and it's a retelling of one of a French anthology short story collection called Les Diaboliques. It's another simple premise of a former noblewoman who exacts revenge in a profound way on her husband and his regality. It shares the pacing of the other films, but layered on top of this one is a Shakespearean-style dialogue that even I have to admit I found challenging at times. The language and phrasing are beautiful, but when you combine it with the slow-moving plot, it often left me cold. It's again part of the process of Gomez's filmmaking, as we feel the characters and how they emote throughout the film. The film even starts with the male protagonist, an autocrat who's disillusioned with how his life is progressing. His life is devoid of any difference, and every day and night feel the same. We see how he acts and behaves in social gatherings with incredible framing and direction as normal, his normal demeanour and his apathy for life. We then meet the woman played by Rita Azevedo. She's the woman who is enacting the revenge, and the baton of protagonist is passed from the male character to her as she tells the story of her life. We see it through her words and ultimately through flashback, and it is a film of such incredible beauty that is shot and represented in such a distinctive manner. The set design is one of theatre throughout the film. The backdrops that you can see are painted. The staging is often visible. We can often see the lighting of the stage. And this only changes to outside shooting in one distinct section of the film, and is another stylistic choice that gives deeper meaning to the story. It's little touches like this that make Gomez's films so memorable. They're films that you often find yourself distracted while viewing, but at some stage throughout you'll find yourself enraptured in. Watching her films presents as many interesting visual and audio cues to the fore as plot devices, which brings me to the audio. The audio mixing and soundtracking of the films are both magnificent, but they also fit the film so clearly. Fragile as the World is sparse and sweet, whereas A Woman's Revenge is lavish, rich, and if anything a bit over the top. Gomez's films may not be for everyone. You may find yourself needing to get into the mood to watch them. You may struggle to break the surface of the themes and the pacing of her films, but if you can let the film ruminate inside you, to let it seep into your veins and flow over you, I think you'll find yourself moved and touched by the experience. She's a truly wondrous filmmaker, and one who deserves some love from the boutique Blu-ray distributors and fans alike. You can catch the Rita Azevedo Gomes series on Mubi now. Thank you very much for watching.